Hey YouTubers, welcome back to my channel. Now all over YouTube, I keep seeing videos about what to do and what not to do in your 20s and 30s. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the why around this situation. And basically, I want to touch on why I feel it's so important for us to understand why we should be smart with our money during this time of our life. And then hopefully we can learn from other people's mistakes to help us save ourselves a lot of money. Believe me. But at the same time, everyone lives different lives. So at the end of the day, you really need to sit down and think about whether this applies to you or not. So while the intro video plays, I'm not going to tell you to comment on anything because I realize there's not that much time for you to go and find the comment box and then comment on something. So why not just hit the like button? Okay, so first of all, I'm part of the 30s group. Well, technically the 31s group. But you know, with the whole coronavirus that's happened this year and everything, 2020 has been just a write-off. So technically, I guess I'm still 30. But yeah, I lived my 20s, living a pretty good life. However, I was living it paycheck to paycheck. Buying the latest phones, going on great holidays during the younger years, going out quite a lot and partying, and basically seeing how far my money can get me. But if I had any kind of financial education at school, maybe things would have been a little bit different. Especially these days, when we're surrounded by social media where they're showcasing a life of success, glamour, and flamboyancy. And I don't know about you, but what really annoys me is that there's all these kids younger than me on YouTube going around and talking about how they're financially free and are now millionaires. And I find that quite hard to believe in some of these younger kids. But there are still quite a few of them who are around my age. And the way they talk about it, it does sound quite feasible. And I'm not sure if you already know about my YouTube crush, Mr. Beast. He basically lives his life off YouTube, just giving away tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars away for free. Now you can't really get any realer than literally documenting on camera how you give away your money. But how have all these people got to a financial position that some of our parents could never have even been able to achieve? Now obviously, number one for all of those ones that I've been talking about has been a YouTube channel. But it's not as easy as that. Trust me, I've been doing this for about a month now, and it's pretty difficult to create content on a regular basis. But on top of that, YouTube makes it a little bit more difficult by not letting you make any money on the YouTube platform until you hit 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. Which is why I wish I had started this YouTube channel a few years back, because then I could have said that I was in my 20s or maybe my teens and I was just looking at a camera weekly basis and putting up videos, instead of saying that I was in my 30s and doing that. And maybe then I could have been in my 30s and be making loads of money off YouTube. So I guess this is probably a good time in the video to do a shameful plug. As you can see, I'm nowhere near 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to tell your friends about the channel too. But the key thing here is you need to pick a topic that you're really interested in. Because essentially you want to be doing something that's going to stop you from binging on that next new documentary on Netflix and then making you want to utilize that time to educate yourself in other ways. But it's all well and good being able to have a YouTube channel, and it is a long-term investment because one day in the next 1 or 2 years, I'll be making some money out of it. But one of the key things about it, it helps you with discipline. The discipline to understand that the world doesn't work in the way that we want it to. For instance, obviously I want to wake up tomorrow with millions of subscribers on YouTube and be making loads of money off it. But as I've learned from all the other side hustles I've tried to start up in the past, there is no such thing as fast money. No matter how many times you see an ad on YouTube that says you can become just like me, flying on jets and driving a Lamborghini. Now I'm not trying to say that they're all lying, but what I know for sure is that it's probably taken them a few years to get to wherever they have got to, if it is true. So definitely, Side hustles are great. And this is where it is really important to find out what you really enjoy. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to have a side hustle that just feels like another 9-to-5 job. Because you don't want to be complaining about your side hustle during the short time that you have when you're not complaining about your 9-to-5. And one of the main things that stops people from having a side hustle is the fact that they don't feel like they've got anything to give. But one thing that is true and everyone needs to believe is that everyone has a skill. Be it photography, be it sports, be it writing, drawing, speaking. Literally, it can be anything. And the key thing is, it's got to be something you enjoy so that it will motivate you to stick with it in the long run, because you'll only reap the benefits after a long period of working with that skill. Now, I once heard in an interview with Jeff Bezos where he basically said that your skill or your gift is not what's going to make you happy, as you already know that you can do that. It's really the way in which you apply it. If you can take your skill or your gift and use it to achieve something, that in turn will earn you a sense of achievement, which brings you that joy. And not only that, if you're able to do it once, you don't even have to stick to one side hustle. You can use it for multiple side hustles. And I think in a future video, we'll look at possible side hustles that anyone can do in their free time at home. So let's go back to the whole financial education. Now, I like to look at McDonald's to put this into perspective, because pretty much everybody watching this video around the world will have a McDonald's around them. And so it can be easier to relate to. Now, if you think about roughly the time when our parents was doing what we're doing right now, it would have been around possibly 40 years ago. Now, back then, McDonald's, they didn't have any veggie burgers. So if I had to choose something on the menu, I guess it would have probably been the filet fish burger. Now, back then in the 1980s, this cost 42 pence. But now, in 2020, it will set me back £3.49. Now, if you use an inflation calculator, and with today's current average salary of around £35,000, in 1985, the equivalent value of that salary would have been worth about £13,722. Now, that's a 255% inflation on income, where the price of that burger has had a 775% rate of inflation. So just with those numbers alone, that means that we need to earn either over double the amount that our parents earn, or we need to find other streams of income to live a life similar to what our parents gave us. But then again, I guess we start thinking about, how did our parents live? Now, I don't know about you, but essentially I'm a second generation immigrant. And anyone in my position will know all about the stories about how our parents came to the country with hardly anything in their pocket. And if you can relate to this, I can assure you, now this wasn't a sob story our parents used to just tell us to make us feel bad for asking to go shopping or, to McDonald's. Because they actually lived through that inflation that we saw with the whole McDonald's burgers. But they didn't just experience it on that front. They were experiencing that inflation on everything around them. Also, back then, it wasn't as easy to start up a side hustle. So their side hustles were to study really hard to work their way up the ladder to get some great jobs. And also one of their other side hustles was saving. But one of the most important one was frugal living. But what does that mean? Basically, our parents didn't go on extravagant holidays. They didn't buy the nicest cars, and they would only buy things when they needed it rather than when they wanted it. Now, one of the key problems our generation has is we take those sacrifices that our parents went through for granted, and we try to run before we can walk. Now, the reason I say this is because we have people in their 20s and 30s living paycheck to paycheck right now because they want to get the latest everything. They want to have the latest gadgets, they want to have the latest clothes, they want to have the latest cars, and so much more. Now, the biggest pitfall people in our generation does is live off credit and debt. And this is basically a life we need to try and avoid. Yes, debt and credit has become so easy to get hold of right now, but why is that? It's not because all the banks are like, we've got loads of money, let's just give it to you guys and we'll just take a little bit of interest from you. No, they've done the calculations. They've realized that there's a large percentage of people who will go so far into their debt that they can't get out of it. And so the way that they get their money back is by increasing that interest at a very, very high rate. And therefore the banks end up winning. But essentially, getting around to this age of 30 is when we hit middle adulthood. And this is usually a time when there's a shift in priorities. It's also a common time for people to start earning a decent living salary. One where you don't have to necessarily watch the pennies as much anymore. And therefore, we end up with a lot more liquid cash. But what are we doing with that money? Now, a lot of us are buying extravagant items like cars, houses, and other things that are literally outside of our means, as most of us have to incur debt or credit in order to buy these items. Now, for instance, a lot of people go out and buy or lease a brand new car. This is the worst thing to do if you want to set yourself up financially, because everybody should know by now that by buying a brand new car, as soon as you leave the showroom, you automatically lose 30% of its value. And within the next 3 years, you end up losing 50% of the value. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this has always been something I've been really tempted to do because I love cars. But when I became financially, as the young ones would say, woke, I realized that I didn't really need to spend my money on that right now, because most of my life is spent either commuting to work and actually being at work. Plus, if billionaires are happy driving Hondas, I should be okay with a Volkswagen Polo.
You yourself are worth somewhere in the vicinity of $9 or $10 billion today. I only say that because I've got a follow-up question.
Okay.
What's with the Honda?
This is a perfectly good car.
So I guess it comes back down to that frugal style of living that our parents managed to master. Now this is what we need to do in this day and age. We need to carefully manage our money and make smart decisions. So the main lesson in financial education is understanding what an asset is and what a liability is. So let's make this really simple and let's understand this in the way that I learned it from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. A brand new car is for sure a liability, as it's losing money as soon as you drive out of the showroom. So a liability is essentially something that is losing money for you. So therefore an asset is something that makes you money. So for instance, like a rental property that's bringing you in rental income. But at the same time, that property can also be a liability. For instance, if you bought that property in an area where the value is actually decreasing, then you're ending up losing money. So it becomes a liability. As you can see, this is a fundamental aspect that we need to get our heads around in order to truly become financially free. Now in the stocks and shares market, if you've invested wisely and your stocks are making a profit or you're making money through dividends, this means you've got an asset. However, if it's losing value, it's then becoming a liability. So it goes without saying we need to enrich our lives with as many assets that we can. And also continually assess our situation to ensure that our assets have not become liabilities. Now, like I mentioned previously, I'll probably make another video sometime in the future where we'll talk about side hustles and various side hustles that you can start doing at home in your free time. But in the meantime, I suggest you take some time to think about something that you really enjoy doing. And if you need any help thinking about how to monetize that idea you have, leave a comment below and I'll see if there's anything I can come up with. At the same time, I think everybody should also go and reassess their current way of living and see if there's any ways where you can live more frugally, and of course assess whether you have more assets than liabilities. Now I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell button so that you get a notification when my next video comes out. And make sure you like, comment and share. See you in the next video. Bye.